Hi students, welcome you all to the second session of the lesson, the third level. But before we continue with the second part, let's have a quick recap of what we have learnt in the first part. Grand Central Station of New York has 2 levels only, but Charlie, a 31-year-old, talks about there being 3 levels. Not only does he believe in the existence of this hypothetical third level, but also claims to have been there. And Charlie visits a psychiatrist friend to talk about his problem. The psychiatrist calls it a waking dream wish fulfillment, otherwise known as hallucination, and rationalizes Charlie's psychology by saying that the modern world is full of insecurity, fear, worry, and war, and everybody wants to escape to some temporary refuge from reality. So according to him, even hobbies like stamp collection is a manifestation of this escape. So Charlie loses his way at the Grand Central. Now the fast growing Grand Central station at times seems to be a maze to Charlie. He had lost his way a couple of times earlier too while taking the subway. Once he entered the lobby of the Roosevelt Hotel, while the other time he emerged at an office building that was 3 blocks away. But this time when he loses his way, something unique happens. He visits the 3rd level. Now let's see what happens there. Sometimes I think Grand Central is growing like a tree, pushing out new corridors and staircases like roots. There's probably a long tunnel that nobody knows about, feeling its way under the city right now, on its way to Times Square, and maybe another to Central Park. And maybe because for so many people through the years, Grand Central has been an exit, a way of escape. Maybe that's how the tunnel I got into. But I never told my psychiatrist friend about that idea. So here what happens is, Charlie wondered that Grand Central was expanding at a very fast rate like a tree. And with its roots, it was expanding. He tells in another way that it's so big. And it's not a big deal that they had even a secret tunnel under the city which goes to the Times Square or maybe the Central Park. And he also feels because this Grand Central is a place of exit for innumerable people, for many people, he also managed to escape reality because of the same reason. And although he felt so, he never shared this with this psychiatrist friend when he met him. The corridor I was in began angling left and slanting downward, and I thought that was wrong. But I kept on walking. All I could hear was the empty sound of my own footsteps, and I didn't pass a soul. Then I heard that sort of hollow roar ahead that means open space and people talking. The tunnel turned sharp left. I went down a short flight of stairs and came out on the 3rd level at Grand Central Station. For just a moment, I thought I was back on the 2nd level, but I saw the room was smaller. There were fewer ticket windows and train gates, and the information booth in the center was wooden old looking. And a man in the booth wore a green eye shade and long black sleeve protectors. The lights were dim and sort of flickering. Then I saw why they were open flame gas lights. So here what happened is, the unusual corridor which Charlie entered into began angling left and slanting downward, which he felt was little odd, but he didn't bother. He kept on walking, and there was no one except him there. So the voice of his feet echoed, and he finally heard the sound of people talking from a distance. Then he took a left and walked down the stairs again, only to reach the 3rd level of the Grand Central. But he thought somehow he had reached the 2nd level. But as he noticed, The rooms there were very small and there were only few ticket windows and train gates, and the information booth in the center was of wood and old looking, and the man in the booth was also different, who was dressed in green eye shade, and he wore a green eye shade and a long black sleeve. So everything was quite different, and the station was also dim lit, for there were open flame gas lights. That is, in the olden days there were gas lights. It looks similar to what is being shown here on the screen. So all this made Charlie feel something different, weird. It was something unusual. There were brass spittoons on the floor, and across the station a glint of light caught my eye. So spittoons here are actually a metal or some earthenware which is used for spitting into it. Okay, and a man was pulling a gold watch from his vest pocket. Vest is a garment worn on the upper part of the body. And he snapped open the cover, glanced at his watch and frowned. He wore a derby hat, a black 4-button suit with tiny lapels, and he had a big black handlebar moustache. Then I looked around and saw that everyone in the station was dressed like 1890 something, and I never saw so many beards, sideburns and fancy moustache in my life. A woman walked in through the train gate. She wore a dress with leg of mutton sleeves and skirts to the top of her high-button shoes. Back of her, out on the tracks, I caught a glimpse of a locomotive, a very small Currier and Ives locomotive with a funnel-shaped stack, and then I knew. So this locomotive is actually a powered railway vehicle which is used for pulling the trains. So here what happened is, now Charlie could see, as he saw the railway gates and the train gates and all were some little weird and strange. He also found brass spittoons. Spittoons, I said, they are used to spit into. Everywhere suddenly a glimpse of light caught his eye. And when he saw a man pulling his gold watch from the vest. Then that man was dressed in an old-fashioned style. Suddenly he noticed that everyone was dressed like the 19th century, like how they were in 1890, and it was basically the time before the deadly wars. So many beards and fancy moustache all around. Something that the protagonist had never seen before. Protagonist here is Charlie. So everything was quite different. The spittoon is on the screen, and even the dress worn by the man could also be seen. And the women, that is, she also wore a dress with leg of mutton sleeves and skirts to the top of her high button shoes. It looks similar, something like this, which is on the screen. So he even saw a very small Currier and Ives locomotive which made him sure about which time he is in. So then he started realizing in which time he is in. So everything was something different and old-fashioned, which made him realize in which century he is in. To make sure, I walked over to a newsboy and glanced at the stack of papers at his feet. It was The World, and The World hasn't been published for years. The lead story said something about President Cleveland. I found that front page since in the public library files, and it was printed June 11, 1894. So to validate his suspicion, Charlie went over to a newspaper boy who was selling the newspaper, The World. That is the name of the newspaper, and the newspaper which was this newspaper, The World, was discontinued years ago. Then there were some headlines about the then President Cleveland. He is the President Cleveland who was the president then at that time, at that period, 1894. And the date on the front page was also June 11, 1894. So all this made him sure in which century he was in. Again and again he was trying, he got evidences which proved that he was centuries back. I turned toward the ticket windows knowing that here on the third level at Grand Central, I could buy tickets that would take Louisa and me anywhere in the United States we wanted to go. In the year 1894, and I wanted 2 tickets to Galesburg, Illinois. Have you ever been there? It's a wonderful town still, with big old frame houses, huge lawns, and tremendous trees whose branches meet overhead and roof of the streets. And in 1894, summer evenings were twice as long and people sat on their lawns, the men smoking cigars and talking quietly, the women waving palm leaf fans with the fireflies all around, in a peaceful world. To be back there with the First World War still 20 years off and World War II over 40 years in the future. I wanted 2 tickets for that. So what happened here is he immediately went to the ticket window to get tickets for himself and his wife to go to Galesburg, Illinois. And it was a wonderful town with lot of greenery. That's what he feels, and he was well aware that from here, that place, one could buy tickets that would take them anywhere in the United States. So, and he describes how things were in 1984 before the 2 world wars took place. That is, the evenings were twice as long as they are now, and men and women were living in peace and serenity, and men smoking cigar and quietly sitting and relaxing, and women waving the palm leaf fans with the fireflies all around in a peaceful world. So this was the description he had for the place. The clerk figured the fare. He glanced at my fancy hat band, but he figured the fare and I had enough for 2 coach tickets one way. But when I counted out the money and looked up, the clerk was staring at me. He nodded at the bills. "That ain't money, mister," he said. "And if you're trying to skin me, you won't get very far." And he glanced at the cash drawer beside him. Of course, the money was old-style bills, half again as big as the money we use nowadays, and different looking. I turned away and got out fast. There's nothing nice about jail even in 1894. So as the clerk calculated the fare, as he wanted to go to Galesburg, he went to the ticket window and he just asked for the tickets. So when the clerk calculated the fare, he looked at Charlie's fancy hat band which he was wearing, and Charlie just had enough for one-sided journey. And just as he took out the money, the clerk informed that this is not the acceptable legal tender. And he also said that by any chance, if he tried to be smart, he won't be able to get away from that place. Then Charlie was confused and he glanced at his cash drawer, and he realized that the currency used back then was different and almost double the size. So he ran outside because he didn't want to go to jail. Even in 1894, the jails were terrible. So he didn't want to take any chance and he came out immediately. And that was that. I left the same way I came, I suppose. Next day during lunch hour, I drew $300 out of the bank, nearly all we had, and bought old-style currency. That really worried my psychiatrist friend. You can buy old money at almost any coin dealers, but you have to pay a premium. My $300 bought less than $200 in old-style bills, but I didn't care. Eggs were 13 cents a dozen in 1894. So what happened is, after that incident happened, the day ended after he came out, and the next day he went to withdraw his entire savings. And what happened? He wanted to convert it into old money by paying some amount of premium. So he had to pay some amount of premium. That is, it cost him much, and even worried his psychiatrist friend. Actually, what is the thing is cents. That is 100 cents is equal to $1. And $1, the value of $1 according to our Indian currency in those days was less than 1 rupee. So he didn't mind even if he had to. That is, his $300 bought him only less than 200 in old style bills if he had to get old style currency. So, but he didn't care because eggs were 13 cents a dozen in 1894. That is, he wants to convey that, and that the value of money was very less. The cost of each product was very less in 1894. So, he didn't mind, and he felt that it was not a loss at all for him. Even if he gets only 200, less than 200 for $300 of what we had now. That is what he tries to say. But I've never again found a corridor that leads to the third level at the Grand Central Station. Although I've tried often enough, Louisa was pretty worried when I told her all this and didn't want me to look for the third level anymore. And after a while I stopped. I went back to my stamps. But now we're both looking every weekend because now we have proof that the third level is still there. My friend Sam Vinier disappeared. Nobody knew where, but I sort of suspected because Sam's city boy and I used to tell him about Galesburg. I went to school there and he always said he liked the sound of the place. And that's where he is, all right, in 1894. So here what happens is, unfortunately, Charlie could never find the way to the third floor corridor again. Despite his hard efforts and everything, he couldn't find that. So his wife Louisa was pretty worried when what has happened. She got to know about everything what has happened, and after a while, he went back to find distractions with the help of the stamps. But somehow Sam, the psychiatrist, disappeared. And they realized, and both husband and wife were, husband is Charlie and wife is Louisa, were searching the his friend. And he finds himself in the time space of 1894. And because Charlie suspected that he had gone to his friend, because Sam was his psychiatrist friend with whom he shared all his ideas about Galesburg. So he suspected that he had gone to Galesburg, and he finds himself in the time space of 1894. Because one night fussing with my stamp collection, I found, well, do you know what a first day cover is? When a new stamp is issued, stamp collectors buy some and use them to mail envelopes to themselves on the very first day of sale, and the postmark proves the date. The envelope is called a first day cover. They are never opened, you just put blank paper in the envelope. Fussing show unnecessary or excessive concern about something. So one night what happened, Charlie came across a first day cover. Now what is this first day cover? It's an envelope with a stamp on it, and that stamp collectors will mail to themselves on the first day of its sale to mark the date. And they are just blank inside and are not meant to be opened. That is, when a new stamp is issued on the first day, what the people will do is they will mail a blank paper to themselves and then retain that unopened letter with the date on the postmark. So Charlie has inherited this hobby and this collection from his grandfather. That night, among my oldest first day covers, I found one that shouldn't have been there. But there it was. It was there because someone had mailed it to my grandfather at his home in Galesburg. That's what the address on the envelope said. And it had been there since July 18, 1894. The postmark showed that. Yet I didn't remember it at all. The stamp was a 6-cent dull brown with a picture of President Garfield. Naturally, when the envelope came to Granddad in the mail, it went right into his collection and stayed there till I took it out and opened it. The paper inside wasn't blank, it read. So what happened is that night he found by surprise one of his grandfather's old first day covers. So someone had mailed it to his father at his home at Galesburg, as he saw from the address on the envelope. And the postmark showed that it had been there since July 18, 1894. And this stamp had a picture of President Garfield on it. And it was a 6-cent dull brown color stamp on it. And his grandfather had put it in his stamp collection, and Charlie now discovered it while he was finding something, while he was just fidgeting with the stamps there. And a paper inside and a letter written in it was found, and the letter read as follows. "941 Willard Street, Galesburg, Illinois, July 18, 1894. Charlie, I got to wishing that you were right. Then I got to believing you were right. And Charlie, it's true. I found the 3rd level. I've been here 2 weeks, and right now, down the street at the Daly's, someone is playing a piano, and they're all out on the front porch singing, seeing Nellie home, and I'm invited over for lemonade. Come on back, Charlie and Louisa. Keep looking till you find the 3rd level. It's worth it, believe me." So here the letter talked about how the writer wished his 3rd level story was true until he actually started believing it to be true, and he found that the 3rd level had been there, and he had been there. He found the 3rd level and he had been there for 2 weeks, and he describes the place he was at that time. And he asks Charlie and Louis to never stop searching the 3rd level and to come back here, as it is worth living there. The note is signed Sam. At the stamp and coin store I go to, I found out that Sam bought $800 worth of old style currency that ought to set him up in a nice little hay feed and grain business. He always said that's what he really wished he could do, and he certainly can't go back to his old business. Not in Galesburg, Illinois in 1894. His old business? Why, Sam was my psychiatrist. So here what happened is he read the letter, and the letter had been signed off as Sam. And Charlie found out from the coin store that he used to visit often that Sam had bought old currency worth $800, which was to be utilized in hay, feed and grain business, which what he always wished to do. And he could not go back to his old business, certainly in Galesburg, Illinois. So that the story ends at a mysterious note where Charlie is wondering that Sam is actually a psychiatrist and he is his friend. Then how come he can have his business in Galesburg in Illinois? So it's a question mark, and the story ends here. So this is the story of the 3rd level. Now before we wind up, let's have a brief summary of this story. So everyone knows that there are only 2 levels at Grand Central Station in New York, but Charlie, a 31-year-old guy, asserts that there are 3 levels and he had been on the 3rd level. So one night Charlie worked late at the office and he was in a hurry to reach home. So what did he do? He decided to take the subway from Grand Central Station. He turned into the Grand Central from Vanderbilt Avenue and went down the steps to the 1st level, where one could take trains like the 20th century. Then he walked down the 2nd level where trains left for suburban areas. Then he ducked into an arched doorway heading for the subway and got lost. So he had lost his way a couple of times earlier too while taking the subway. So once he entered the lobby of the Roosevelt Hotel, while the other time he also emerged at an office building that was 3 blocks away. But this time when he loses his way, something unique happens and he visits the 3rd floor. That is, Charlie keeps walking in the quiet corridor, angling left and slanting downward till old station that is completely different from the two familiar levels. So the antiquated small room with fewer ticket counters and train gates, a wooden information booth, and then a flickering open flame gas lights and brass spittoons remind him of the architecture of the 1800s. So he also finds that people are dressed in outmoded outfits, and he notices so here he notices that the date on a newspaper, The World, is printed June 11th, 1894. Then he turns toward the ticket windows and wants to buy 2 tickets to Galesburg, Illinois. Since he had no old style currency, he could not buy tickets and he came back home. So he had always wanted to travel to Galesburg with his wife Louisa. So in his mind it was a wonderful town with big old frame houses, huge lawns and tremendous trees whose branches meet overhead and roof the streets. So it's a place with long and pleasant summer evenings where people sat on their lawns smoking cigars and talked quietly. So the next day during lunch he exchanges his $300 for old style bills amounting to something less than 200 only. But the loss didn't bother him because he believes that in Galesburg everything will be cheaper and that he can manage even with a small amount. But he could never again find the corridor leading to the 3rd level. And his wife Louisa is worried after knowing all this and asks him not to look for the 3rd level anymore. So one day while he was fussing with his stamp collection, Charlie comes across a letter that was not there earlier. It bears a postmark on a faded 6-cent stamp with a picture of President Garfield. And the envelope was sent on July 18, 1894 to whom? To Charlie's grandfather in Galesburg, and is addressed to Charlie actually. So the letter reads that Sam has reached Galesburg and is enjoying his life there, and he also invites Charlie and Louisa to Galesburg. And when Charlie goes to the stamp and coin store, he found that Sam had bought $800 worth of old currency bills to establish his business of hay, feed and grain in Galesburg. And the letter was written by Sam Wainwright, who was Charlie's psychiatrist. So actually this story brings us to a conclusion that people find it hard to make peace with unpleasant things and they come across in life. And it brings out a common man's craving for peace and security. And like any other common man, Charlie too appreciates the so-called pleasures of everyday life. And he wants to stay in the past because in 1894, he finds it much more peaceful, secure and serene. And the world in 1994 hasn't seen the repercussions of war and the insecurities that come with war, terror and disease had gotten the better of common folks like Charlie, who wants a transient relief from the harsh realities of life. So when we analyze this story is the most concise and entertaining story about time travel. And the story also dwells on the theme of escapism, not only as a psychological refuge from the grim realities of the present day, but also as a desire to stay with the past or to keep the past alive in the complexities of the present. So this is a different story and hope you all would have enjoyed it. Have a great day. Thank you.